Serial killers are kind of our thing, right? Not just in America, all over the world. If you're a true crime junkie, and I know you are, you can't shake these people. But the thing is, there are some serial killers that are a lot worse, and they don't get famous. And that's kind of weird. But tonight, in our ongoing series, Serial Killers, we are going to actually turn the Klieg lights onto a couple of serial killers that, truthfully, you would probably wish to forget about. But if you know what's good for you, you might not be best served to forget about these guys. I want to bring in Dr. Katherine Ramsland. She's a forensic psychologist and author of the book Confession of a Serial Killer, the untold story of Dennis Rader, the BTK killer. Dr. Ramsland, good to have you back again. Should we forget? Like, should we let these people die with their crimes? Or does it help us? Does it serve us at all to keep them top of mind, to stay one step ahead of the next one?
I think it's a good idea to know about them, in part to be able to catch some potential serial killers early and do some intervention. But also, I think they teach us things that we need to keep in mind.
So let me just sort of go rapid fire with you on these guys, because they're not super famous. In fact, I recognized only one name on the list, but I'm in the biz. So start with William Bonin. I think they called him the Freeway Strangler. What was his story?
Yeah, Bill Bonin would drive around. He had 5 accomplices. He would drive around in a van looking for hitchhikers or boys walking alone, and would get them into the van. He would rape them, twist a T-shirt around their neck with a crowbar. Sometimes he stuck ice picks in their ear, or hangers up their rectum, or poured acid down their throats, and got so addicted to this that sometimes after he murdered somebody and was on his way home, he'd drive around looking for yet another victim because he just wanted to keep killing.
Just unbelievable. How about this guy, Gerard Schaefer? I got the willies. He's a former cop.
Yeah, he wasn't a very good cop. He would use his police credentials, and we know from a couple of survivors that he would get them into the car, assuring them that he would take them someplace safe. These were teenage girls. Took them to a remote area, bound them to a tree with ropes around their necks, and made them stand on slippery tree roots while he left, such that if they slipped, they would hang themselves. They did get away, but he was associated with 9 other missing women, and there were skeletal remains found in that very area of other girls who had also been bound to the tree and butchered. So he claimed that he had actually raped and murdered 30, but we didn't. He was only convicted of the 2. Then he created an entire book full of images of torturing women.
Is it true that he kept teeth as souvenirs?
Yes, he did keep teeth as souvenirs, and also jewelry. Anything that he could take and put in his room. He had all kinds of items related to these missing people.
Did they know if he removed the teeth when the victims were alive or dead?
He wouldn't talk about it, so we don't know.
Okay, Danny Rawling, that's one who's a little more famous, known as the Gainesville Ripper.
Yes, well, he would enter homes, often with just a screwdriver. He would enter homes and torture, stab, mutilate, and eviscerate even some of his victims. One victim he beheaded. He gutted her. He sat her up on a bed so that her presentation to whoever came in would be just horrifying. He liked to pose in his victims in very obscene ways, and he did really harm them as he was murdering them.
Okay, I just have about 30 seconds left for Bobby Joe Long.
Well, he was a very angry rapist. He would brutally beat up his women. He would put ropes around their neck to control them. And in one case, he actually broke the hips of a woman to pose her in an obscene way. But mostly, he really just wanted to take out his frustration and rage on his victims.
Just unbelievable. And this is your business. Dr. Ramsland, I am really loving this series because I feel like I do learn a lot. I don't know that I'm going to be beneficial for this. I just now feel like, again, I need to sleep with a shank. But will you come back again?
Sure.
Dr. Ramsland joining us live again. So appreciate that. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.